Hello, friends. Um, I think we're coming live now. It's really great to have another Elrond town hall. There are, I think, a number of things that we've been trying to cover, convey, discuss during the last few days and weeks, and I do think that now is a very, very important moment for what's happening, for things that are coming. And it's extremely important to have a proper conversation with the Elrond community during this difficult moments. I will probably touch on three main things today. How to manage this type of situations and what's happening right now, the way that we can make sense of what's happening and so forth. Then very specifically the market and what's happening with some of the projects in the ecosystem, in the broader crypto ecosystem. And perhaps most important, what's happening within the Elrond ecosystem. Now, we've had the last town hall some time ago, and there have been a lot of milestones, a lot of productive steps forward in the meantime. And so it is extremely interesting and important to follow up on some of the points, see where we are, and then see how the future looks. The most important part, I think, as everyone in the community at this point sees, is that we're in some sort of war right now. And it's extremely important to understand that during this type of period, it's valuable to take a close look at what's happening, to try to understand what's happening, and more important, try to find some actionable points that give a guiding compass during difficult times and enable the entire community, everyone, whether they're just investors, community members, builders, or part of the different teams in the community, to focus on the right things and move forward in the right direction. It's a very, very difficult period. And I would expect that for most of the community, this is, in some sense, extremely confusing because it's not clear what exactly is happening. It's not clear how all of these things have overlapped all of a sudden. But before diving in, I want to say a few things. Elrond, as we stated yesterday and a few days back, is in an exceptional position to execute. We are in an exceptional position with some of the products that we are working on, some of the plans that we have, and nothing has changed. In fact, we're even more focused on some of the core points that we're moving forward with. And I will probably add some more context specifically to these points at the end. But it's extremely important for the Elrond community to see this, to understand this, and take it in. During difficult times and during sort of war times, people become extremely emotional and stop processing things in the right way. And so what we want to do, especially today, is go through a bit of process of taking in the new data, taking in the new insights, making sense of them, and preparing for whatever comes, so that if things turn out to be extremely well, even in the short term and in the longer term, that's easy. If things turned out to be extremely hard to digest and challenging, then it's extremely important for us and for the entire community to be very prepared for those. During war times, I'd say one thing matters most, perhaps more than anything else. And this is survival. What does survival mean? It means that whenever you're entering a very extreme situation, you want to stop the normal process of things, start looking at on what's happening, and make sure that things are set in a way that whatever comes, you have time, you have energy, and you can focus on the right things without extreme pressure on top of you. It means that perhaps now more than ever, it's very important to stay out of the markets, to not engage in leverage position, to try to make sense of what's happening, and be extremely cautious and extremely rational. And this, if done right, opens up the possibility for some of the next steps that we're discussing. And I'm going to the second point, which we're very much doing all day long, but I believe during a wartime, this is done even more focused than before. And this is a hyper focus on building. At Elrond, this is what we've been discussing. This is what we've been doing for the past years. And we've been reminding everyone that at the end of the day, if you're alive and have a new day with new energy, then you can change almost everything. It's extremely important to take this as an opportunity to look at things in a new light and say, things have been interesting up until this point. If you're in some kind of, let's say, market situations or market conditions that are very unfortunate, it's extremely important to recognize them, to stop them, try to exit that type of position or that type of situation, and put yourself in a position that you can rightfully process things, and then that you can focus on building something for the long term. And this actually leads me to the third point that I believe is extremely important, and this is long-term thinking. It's not only extremely important to make sure you survive, and for us to make sure that the community survives, that we have not only the products but also the users and everyone in the community here to be able to grow as we're going to grow during the next period. But focus on the building part is what brings the new opportunities in. And this is what we've been doing. This is what we've been doing day in and day out. And this is what we are continue to do, just because it's the one thing that brings all the benefits and all the yields during the next period and during the future. The third point, as I was mentioning, is long-term thinking. And it's extremely interesting how usually markets tend to make people a lot more impulsive, and tend to reinforce the thinking process a lot less. People have some very interesting words developed recently in the crypto space, like aping in. And all these words that seem very harmless, but then promote one thing, namely that as things happen, you should not think very hard, but you should just move like a monkey, process, click, and then see what happens. I very much think that we should proceed contrary to this point. We should just think about things longer term. Not look at what happens today, not look at the opportunity you can make in the next 5 minutes, 1 hour, or today, but rather look at the opportunity that you can make by building something over the next months, over the next years, with people that you can have around you over the next months, over the next years. And it usually comes down to this filter guiding a lot of people in the right direction, or if this is missed, people going in a lot of unfortunate and unproductive directions. So thinking long term on top of building just adds up and filters the right kind of opportunities, the right kind of habits, and the right kind of mindset that then can be built on top. Um, Last, I would add one point here, and this is something that I've been thinking a lot about, not only recently but for a long time, and perhaps has come back to me over and over again in different forms. And this is the idea that however you look at things, wherever you may start, at some particular period, whether you're starting from a very fortunate position, in a very fortunate part of the world, or whether you're starting from a very bad position in a very unfavorable part of the world, once you're aware, once you wake up, it's absolutely your responsibility to move in the right direction, to make the right decisions. And perhaps more now than ever, whether people start from zero and it's extremely difficult, or whether you have absolutely everything you need, it's extremely important to find something challenging that you love, that you push with your entire energy for. Because if you don't find something like this, you'll go in many, many wrong directions. You'll lose a lot of energy, and you'll just waste time, waste your life. On the other hand, if you found this type of thing, this type of project, this type of community or passion, pushing for it a lot will be the guiding force that will orient you, that will challenge you, and that will give you the opportunity to prove sort of what you're made of. Because irrespective of what we believe we can do, it's more important to discover what we can create, build, and so forth in this very challenging world that we have in front of us. So during all this time, understanding that you'll have challenges, understanding that some challenges will hit you very hard, but it is within your power to just move forward whatever comes, is the ultimate superpower. It's like we always start with some type of mindset that says, no, this I cannot take, this is too much, this is too difficult, and all of that. And I'm especially saying this during this type of period because it's very important to understand that having resolve, being extremely determined to move forward whatever comes, will always be tested on the one hand. But then as the test comes, it will always also come with new opportunities, with new ways of moving forward. And you'll be extremely surprised at how many creative new ways arise when you're compelled and resolved to move forward. And I'll end this initial note with one thing that I believe has been extremely interesting for us, because when you've been through hell, whatever comes seems a lot simpler. Not because it's not super difficult and stressful and so forth, but when you've been through something that is taking sort of everything from you, and it's extremely difficult and painful, and requires you to rethink everything you've learned up until that point, then you almost have an unfair advantage that cannot be taken away from you, because it's not in what you have or what you've sort of built, but in this idea that you've discovered through building, through going through the difficult process, through the difficult challenges, that as things are hit you, as the challenges come, you always have an ability to um, wake up again with new energy and push forward whatever comes. So it made me extremely tricky for some people, especially from some other communities, and we'll come to those. But it's important, even during the most difficult times, to step back, think things through, find the best way forward, and then push with whatever have you have to reach that particular goal. And this is what we've been trying to do. This is what we've been trying to share with the projects that are building on Elrond, with the community, and with the different really valuable people that we have within the Elrond community. This is the first point that I wanted to touch. That's, as I said, more around having some psychological tools to deal with the really tough, stressful, and difficult situations that we go through. It might not be the case for most of the people yet. It might only be the case for some of the people, but it's still extremely important to understand that there are peace times and war times. This is sort of a wartime. And first, you need to focus on survival, make sure that things are set in a way that you can move forward. Second, make sure you find a challenge that you can focus on really hard. And hyper focus on building is the one thing that enables you to correct whatever error has been done, to build something that does not exist, to open some opportunities that we don't have yet. Third, thinking long term rather than short term enables everyone to orient their steps, their moves forward, their strategy, and their focus. And it's extremely, extremely important, perhaps now more than ever, to think long term, to not make short term decisions that then can compromise everything that you've built. And then, last, as I said, having the resolve to move forward, whatever comes, however painful it is a superpower. And it's something that you can discover as you're trying to build something that you really love. And I think this is what we've discovered in the process of building Elrond. And it's what we're sharing, what we're pushing for. And it's what makes Elrond extremely special. Now, moving one step further, I would probably like to add a few points that are very specific about the current situation in the market, just general macro insights, some general crypto insights, and a few ideas and insights about the very difficult situation regarding what we've seen happening with Terra and with Luna. So the most important thing I'd say is it almost seems like things can become a lot better, but only if we work super hard for them. The results, the benefits, the new opportunities will never come without extreme efforts, extreme sacrifice sometimes. And this is what we're doing. And it should be clear that this does never happen sort of alone by itself automatically. We should not take these things for granted because they only happen as we push extremely hard. Now, there have been some very tricky, let's say, accumulating situations, either done via circumstances that have happened or via mistakes that have not been for which the price has not been paid yet. And just briefly touching on the macro condition, understanding that we've been through a very difficult pandemic that has not brought its results yet, for which we've not seen the results yet, is a tough situation to be in. Now, more than that, seeing what has happened with the war in Ukraine has been heartbreaking. The economic effects of that type of situation, the cascading effects that we are going to see on the financial markets, in the banking sector, supply chains, and all the other parts of the economy are going to be very difficult to process and swallow. And then, in addition to all that, it's almost that the situation right now with hyperinflation and everything that has sort of been discussed in theory in the crypto space for a long time is now sort of coming to the minds of the general global community, and is coming home in a way that's super interesting to see, and again very difficult to process. Having these three elements overlap is quite a scenario. It's surprising that all of this is happening at the same time, and quite frankly, things could be a lot more difficult, a lot worse. And it's great that it's only as bad as it is, and we should work tremendously hard to change this type of situations and make sense of them. So before changing that, this is the macro overview, and it's quite tricky. Now, in addition to all this, the crypto ecosystem has made tremendous progress in all these periods. And it has made tremendous progress and seen tremendous acceleration during the pandemic. And some things that would have taken maybe 5 years have accelerated extremely fast, to a point where they got adopted. A lot of people got familiarized with crypto and with the blockchain space, and a lot of the adoption happened much faster than people were anticipating. Now, the second very interesting point and opportunity is related to the war. What we've seen with Ukraine has been exceptional. Exceptional not only in what the Ukrainian people have done, and the way they resolved to fight a situation that was basically dismissed as being impossible to be won or dealt with. They've proved that they could do that. And then the interesting thing was how crypto immediately emerged as a tool for them to use, as a tool that came to their aid, that enabled people from all over the world to donate money to help them in that particular situation really fast during the weekends, during the nights when the banking system was normally not open. So this is a tremendous opportunity. Now, there's also a tremendous risk here that crypto sort of instead of becoming this great narrative of opening the world, reimagining opportunities, offering them to people that did not have this very highly developed systems and the opportunities that some of us have. Instead of this being shared with everyone in the world, there's also a possibility that crypto becomes highly regulated and is targeted as a kind of means of evading, let's say, sanctions, taxes, and all of that. I very much hope that this does not go in that direction. And it's, again, our responsibility to make sure that people within the most important, let's say, spaces that are regulators, presidents, prime ministers, and all these people, that they hear not only the bad, but that they hear the overwhelming and compelling stories and realities that have come out of the crypto space. And this is super tricky, and it also leads us to this situation where we are in right now. Namely, the macro landscape has not been at all interesting. In fact, it has been extremely problematic, rather pessimistic, reflected in all the public markets. Then the crypto space has gone through a tremendous growth and has reached some very strategic points that could change the entire crypto space forever, give it a lot of credibility, give it a lot of influence and power within the real world. And this is great. Now, this moves us also to much closer to the current situation that we're facing, that has sort of accelerated a temporary downturn, which relates to what has happened with Terra, Luna, and the UST. I understand that this situation is extremely difficult to process for some of the people, and it's heartbreaking to see people really go through this type of situation. I surely hope that people don't go through something like this, or there is a solution that is found. But the very short version of what is happening with Terra, Luna, and UST is that there is this unfolding crisis, and there's almost a situation that can be extremely clearly seen at this point. And this situation is that the system and architecture on top of which the Terra, Luna, and USD ecosystem is at this point irrevocably and undeniably broken. What this actually means is that given the current feedback loop that is in place within this ecosystem, I cannot see any way that rational actors can be presented a compelling scenario in which this system can be resolved or solved without halting it completely first. So I mean this in the let's say most honest way possible, that I hope a better solution is found. I hoped this during the last days as well, but I've reached a sort of inescapable conclusion that at this point, the architecture is basically irrevocably broken, and a bailout is not enough. Even a bailout of 5 billion would not solve this type of situation, because the basic architecture is essentially broken. This is what has been proven. I'm not questioning what has been built up until the point that has worked, where the entire ecosystem has worked. It's almost like the stablecoin and the Luna ecosystem and the Luna currency have worked tremendously well in a positive scenario. And this has been amplified to a point where it has gained a lot of traction, and it was a genuinely interesting experiment. But it's at this point, I think, clear for everyone that there is a systemic risk in that type of ecosystem, that the stablecoin cannot remain stable, that the Luna currency cannot essentially exist because it cannot accrue any economic value in this type of downturn spiral. And so it's almost like, before moving forward, the most important thing is to recognize what as clear as possible what the situation really is, what the problem really is. When you have a few of these models and you understand that one of the pieces is undeniably broken and cannot be fixed while having it in motion, then the most important thing would be, I would suggest, to halt the system, as difficult as that might be. Re-examine all the components, make sure that there's one clear solution, and then if there is a solution, move forward and restart everything before people lose their money and all of that. If there's no other solution, as difficult as it may be, it's much better to find a way forward so that the people survive, rather than just moving forward blindly and hoping that the market would solve this, when there's a clarity there that this cannot be solved like this. So it's extremely tricky. I understand it's extremely painful for some of the people, but we've spent a tremendous amount of time just studying this type of architectures for the last 6 months. We've looked at all the stable coins and have concluded that in some respects, for instance, Terra has made some significant steps forward, much further than anyone else in the space, up to some point. The only problem with this type of stable coins specifically is that the security mechanism, the robustness of the entire system, if it's not robust enough, when this type of crisis comes, you'll basically not be able to survive and see another day. So it's almost like whatever you're doing on the growth side, if you cannot make sure that survival is covered, it becomes a challenge that at some point will not be able to be solved. So this is just a bit clarification on why the entire crypto landscape has suffered. The Terra ecosystem has been sort of penetrating the Bitcoin ecosystem, has been working with a lot of the protocols in the space. And the fact that they've gone down has created a lot of ripple effects, a lot of cascading effects, of course, a lot of pain and some situations that are extremely difficult to deal with. Now, what I believe would be a good scenario forward, again, as difficult as this may be, is if you're in any type of situation related to this project, try to take a step back. I understand that this may be extremely difficult. I understand that it cannot be solved easily, but try to take a step back. Try to look at things as they are. Try to sort of accept that they have reached a situation where there's probably, most likely, no coming back. They're trying to deal with it, but if you are in a situation where you can process this, it's extremely important that you sort of survive, that you don't go down a different road, that you stop whatever can be stopped. You stop, take the losses, or think things through, and then see what's the best move forward there for you. But whatever you do, it starts with understanding the situation, thinking things through, and then making sure that you optimize for survival. For them, I think at this point it's clear that the only way forward would be for the system to completely stop temporarily, analyze if something can be done to completely remove the broken parts, to completely solve the problem, and decide at that point how you deal with the users and how you deal with the next steps. Because if you leave it playing like this, it's almost delaying the inescapable conclusion and creating even more sort of pain problems until some of the regulators jump in, until some of the other projects will have to shut down some of the let's say, integrations. So I'm only discussing this because I know how difficult, how complex this problem is. It's not simple to build a stable coin, especially one that retains the peg, that has a sound security model, and one that could produce, in theory, something like 20% yield, um, which is extremely interesting. So this is a super hard problem, um, and at this point, it's clear that the solution is unsound and it's broken. The most important step forward, I would suggest, is stopping the system. Um, if they can't do it, then it will probably lead to some of the partners to do it, some of the exchanges to hold things, some of the integrators and dApps to hold things, just to isolate the risk, to put it in measure and make sure that there's a second day for the entire ecosystem. I think the damage and problems that have come out of this are quite significant. The most important thing is that people sort of survive this experiment and they can move forward. Um, Resuming and maybe concluding this part, I'll essentially um, just resume this part and say that it has been a very tricky situation for some people. Um, it has been challenging, but there is a solution forward. The solution is to stop this part and then focus on some of the other ecosystems, especially focus on some of the things that Elrond is doing. Now, coming back to the entire discussion that we're having today, I've said that the first part is just dealing with the situation as it unfolds, making sure that there are some tools here that people can have and can move forward with. Um, if those tools are clear, then we can move forward. Um, Second, there is a very tricky situation, and as long as we understand the situation and make the right kind of decisions, we make sure that there is a time that we can focus on. There is new energy, new people that we can touch base with, and then build whatever we want to build. Um, Now, moving back to the perhaps most important point, where is Elrond today? What's happening with Elrond? What are we focusing on? Well, the most important part is that since our discussion, last discussion, we've made a tremendous amount of progress. The network has been, as you've seen, extremely stable. It has had zero downtime. And this, especially looking by comparison to some of the other networks that have been in the space, that have branded themselves, moved forward, and then had tremendous downtimes. That's extremely important and suggestive of different problems. I can not overstate how much effort has been put into this by the entire team to just focus on over oversolve some solution, some problems, some bugs that have been discovered with all the updates that have come out and all of that. It has been remarkable to see the network move forward, to see it withstand even difficult times. And at this point, it's extremely interesting and important that Elrond is not only very stable, but has all the tools to kickstart a major new growth wave. I've mentioned 2 points here. One, that it's extremely important to make sense of the world. Two, that it's extremely important to understand and survive. But now I want to switch this type of idea and move closer to what we are focused on at Elrond. Perhaps during the most difficult times, if there's an opportunity, we want to use it and grow much faster. or in a much more interesting way than during the, let's say, peaceful times. Because if during the peaceful times there is a tremendous noise and everyone is trying to push on different things, perhaps during this times that are most difficult, we can push much harder, and we can focus on bringing some milestones in that have been in the works for a long time to actually bring Elrond where it needs to be. I've mentioned this, and I usually don't discuss too much around this, but Elrond is in a position to really be in the top 10 and beyond that point. Now, why do I mention this part? It's precisely because we're preparing a few different things that are putting focus on this part. Perhaps the most important element that we've been discussing, and you've seen Lucian mentioning on Twitter, and we've been mentioning ourselves for a long time now, is the Meyer Dex and the max economics. Um, we've been building a new economics model. We've been testing it out, trying to get peer review for it. But some things are clear. As we had the initial bootstrapping period, we've solved some extremely interesting problems that no one had solved in the initial phase. As we move forward, we want to solve again some problems that no one in the entire ecosystem has solved. There is no single economic model for any DEX that aligns the DEX growth with the sort of value capture mechanism of the token, so that there is a rational basis to really build an entire ecosystem around it. There is a very clear misalignment, and it's almost like the tokens are independent of the exchange, and this type of misalignment is the basis for a lot of, let's say, parts that have been going in a very different direction. Now, we've been working on a new model. The model will probably come out during the next few, probably 1-2 weeks. Um, this is something that I'm saying in a way where we might come with some ideas. We might discuss some ideas with the community, as Lucian has done, and you have come with a lot of updates, a lot of suggestions and ideas. We very, very much appreciate this part, and cannot actually wait for the new wave coming on the Meyer Dex. There are some very clear ideas there around utility, around new things that you'll be able to do with the Meyer Dex, and around why Max will gain a lot more adoption, a lot more value, and will be core to the entire DEX ecosystem. So quite excited around that part, and I cannot wait for us to share some more ideas. Now, in the meantime, if you've seen something that you believe is extremely valuable or extremely useful, please be sure to share it in the thread that we have, and we'll make sure to take a very close look at each of the suggestions there. Moving one step further, of course, you've heard us discuss the bridge part, the Grand Elrond Bridge. And again, during all this discussion, one thing you've probably seen is how many hacks have happened in the meantime. It's like almost each day, if not every week, we've seen tremendous hacks, all pushing for attacks around the bridges of some of the ecosystems in the space. I cannot underscore how complex even these elements are and how large the attack surface is. So it has always been our focus to make sure that the bridge is not only very useful, opening the door of interaction with some of the Ethereum tools, Ethereum products, Ethereum ecosystem in general, but then provides the basis for this bridge to be further extended with some of the other ecosystem as well, and then makes an extremely compelling case empirically that it is as secure as we can make it to be. So we've gone through several audits, we've gone through several battle of yields, and we're now ready. I think even today we've seen some of the last updates with the bridge. So I expect the bridge to come out very, very soon. And I'm extremely excited about the bridge and what it will bring to the entire ecosystem, because we have tens of projects waiting to bridge some of their tokens or to start new applications that they can focus on. A different element that is extremely important and we've discussed about is the NFT marketplace. And I will take one moment to say a few things about the NFTs. NFTs are extremely interesting and extremely useful. In some ways, they are sort of creative play at its best, communicating some new ideas with new community members in new ways. This is great, and it opens up a new vertical that people within the ecosystem can explore. The very interesting part that we've seen in the Elrond ecosystem is NFT marketplaces started by community members. And one is Trust Market, another is Dead Rare, and there are several others, but I can say that these marketplaces have provided a tremendous amount of value to the entire Elrond ecosystem. We very much encourage and appreciate and applaud their efforts, and have been there with a lot of interaction, a lot of suggestions, and a lot of just new deals directed towards them, because they are doing really great work, and we very much appreciate this part. I also believe that there are really interesting artists and projects that are starting new ideas within the NFT space, and there will be a place for them to showcase this, to just have it as a more prominent discussion in the community. I cannot wait to see this part unfolding as we move forward with the Elrond marketplace. Now, one last thing that I would mention regarding the marketplace is the fact that this is not a competing marketplace with some of the marketplaces that exist in the ecosystem. We very much want to encourage the projects that exist to continue to grow, to continue to bring new people in, to continue to bring new projects in, and we ourselves will just bring a lot more users to them and a lot more referrals sort of with different artists and deals that will come in. Rather, the Elrond NFT marketplace is a new Lego block that we want to put out within the ecosystem and that we share with the community, so that both the projects that are live right now and some sort of new people from other parts of the world can essentially take this new Lego block, play with it, change it in some new ways, and then create new services for their communities. So it's just another step forward where within the Elrond ecosystem, we have a range of Lego blocks with which someone can build even more interesting products, even more interesting interactions and experiences. So just taking some of the ideas in mind, the Maya Dex will have some new features, new utility, and a new economics model. We're pushing really hard on that. Can't wait for the Grand Elrond Bridge to be live. The NFT marketplace is super close and will probably come very, very soon. I will add one thing, just regarding the um, meta bonding part. We've seen a tremendous excitement, engagement, and adoption of this new product. So, of course, there are several other projects that are in the pipeline that will be shared during the next probably 2 weeks. We'll always have new updates, probably on a monthly basis, with new projects that are essentially put in the pipeline as they come in, but they always start 1 month later. Still, there are some really cool and really exciting projects, and they've been quite happy to start this journey with the Elrond community. Moving one step further, I would add one element that, again, we've touched on some time ago, and that is now extremely close. And this is Utrust. Utrust 2.0 will very, very soon start within the Elrond ecosystem. That's a really big and important moment for them and for the entire ecosystem, because some services that they've not had available will finally become available. They'll be able to leverage the entire Elrond ecosystem, the new Elrond products, and then just share them with their entire community. So we're extremely excited for the progress we are making there. Of course, I can only share a few things that we've seen tremendous growth, progress, and have quite some exciting things in the pipeline. But yeah, we'll probably have to share this with the Utrust team very, very soon as things are ready. Now, one other thing in addition to all this part is the launchpad, and I will add that the second launchpad that we had with the entire process that we've seen with Ethereum has been exemplary for the ecosystem. Not only have we made tremendous progress, but we've focused on solving some of the things that have been the most difficult to process with the first experiment, and then have also focused on building the ecosystem further. We're quite excited with what Holoride has been doing, what they've been preparing, and the way they're moving forward, making substantial progress with their product, with their launch, then bringing this type of technology to the mainstream. We're also quite excited with what the Ethereum team does. And it's great to see this ecosystem growing in a very, very healthy way. Now, moving forward, the part of the price discovery has been exceptional. It's surprising that this has not been done before, almost, because of how obvious it is right now and how useful it is. But it has been quite an effort by the entire DEX and dev team. And I cannot underscore how valuable this entire progress has been. Now, one of the elements that we're still processing and continue to focus on is the staking part, the snapshot part, and the timeframes. This is, I can say, quite close. So if you're staking Elrond at this point, you're doing it right, because as we make progress, you're probably going to see us making progress on the launchpad part as well. We're still pushing on some modules there, especially with the KYC part that has been extremely painful each of the times. We're still finding looking for some even better solutions, and we'll probably make some changes as well. But the launchpad will continue to be probably one of the most important parts where new startups in the entire crypto space can launch, can present their ideas, and can build an entire community that's extremely passionate and extremely useful to the process of what the Launchpad project is trying to do. We also have some very interesting and very big integrations, where, of course, having some very important discussions at government levels in several parts of the world. And as they move forward, of course, we'll share some very exciting milestones. The discussions that we've had have been surprisingly productive, and we're quite happy and quite excited with some of the parts, some of the steps that we've done both locally and on an international level. And so one of the important points that maybe I'll touch on is our plans regarding a potential stablecoin. Of course, this is a very, very interesting time to draw some conclusions regarding what models could withstand the test of time. And of course, we're considering both some improvements on fully backed, fully backed stable coins that are regulated. And of course, we've made quite some steps on that front. But we're also considering some very significant improvements to things that have been done in the space. At the right time, we'll present something on this front. It's just that at this point, we can learn a tremendous amount and just express some of the ideas that we've been discussing internally in a way where we don't need to clarify why some models don't work yet, but rather it has become obvious. I'm now just trying to check if there are any relevant or important questions from the community. I see here that some of the questions, some of the elements that I've answered, some of the points are especially related to the questions that came from the community. I'm looking a bit through the questions that my colleagues have put in here to see if there's something that I have not covered yet. One second. So maybe the last element, the last point that I will touch on is, where can one start within the Elrond ecosystem if they want to learn about it, if they want to see where they fit, whether it's in the community, whether it's staking, whether it's building. I think we have a documentation for the technical stuff, and we're also probably preparing some material that would be especially geared toward the very beginner. So if you start today, you don't know anything about crypto, about what's happening in the space, and don't really want to understand everything, but want to make sense really fast of what's happening, we'll probably have very soon a guide around this that will try to make things a lot simpler. Now, coming to a conclusion, just summarizing some of the most important points. We are at a very interesting time where there are some very difficult challenges, but during this most difficult challenges, there always arises an opportunity for us to reinvent ourselves, an opportunity to transform this type of challenge or crisis in a huge growth scenario or growth milestone or growth step. And at Elrond, beyond understanding what's happening, the very focus that we have is, now that we're close to having all the Lego pieces within the ecosystem ready, we intend to unleash a growth phase both on the dev space and the user space, unlike any other growth phase that we had. And it's extremely likely and interesting that this time will be the time that will push for that growth phase. Now, we do have the max updates coming, the bridge part, NFT Marketplace, UTK 2.0, Launchpad upgrades, and then some very strategic and significant both integrations and discussions. We prepared quite a few things to push forward and will not stop. Despite market conditions, we will push forward with even more resolve, even more focus. And I will just take the time to underscore how important the focus of the team has been and how important it is to be kept in the right direction, how important the focus of the community and the admins and some of the projects that are building on top of Elrond has been. And it's precisely this that keeps a project not only on the right track, but opens it the opportunity to then grow beyond all the other projects, to move outside of the space where, let's say, there are very few users or very few developers. This is what we've been preparing for at Elrond. And we're not only withstanding the tricky situations, but determined to move forward even faster. It's extremely interesting how one phase can switch, one crisis can switch to a huge opportunity if you take it in and push as hard as possible. I'm actually quite curious to see how fast we'll be able to grow, how fast we'll be able to push on some of the things we have in the pipeline, and just wish some of the community members that they very much focus on the things that matter, that they find a space in the community, either building or supporting or coming close to some of the projects, and take this opportunity, because it's precisely at this point when the market is in this type of situation that we need to seize the opportunity and make the most of it. So thank you for the conversation. Thank you for being here, and stay strong and very focused, and make sure that whatever comes, you remind yourself that there's another day, that as things pass, you'll have more energy and can push even stronger the next day. Let's keep building, and as we've said many times, I would say that we're just starting out, and we're just about to cross a phase where crypto becomes part of the mainstream. We'll better make the most of it during the next phase. Thank you, guys, and talk very soon.